Sportage or Sportage? Well, I've spent 3 months with Kia's medium SUV, and while I still haven't quite figured out the pronunciation, I think I may have just figured out whether you should buy one. A quick recap. This was the first Sportage I've driven since my parents owned one years ago, and I entered my test with high expectations. This model is the top spec GT line, offering all-wheel drive, a 2.4 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine and a 6-speed automatic transmission for $45,590 before on-road costs. Throughout the course of my long-term review of the Sportage, I've been focused on 3 main things: city compatibility, interior practicality and comfort on longer drives. We've even been to Sydney and back together, and for the most part I've been impressed. But before I deliver my final verdict, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Behind the wheel, I'd best describe the Kia Sportage as a consistent, calm and capable companion. The steering feel is nice and light but precise enough to get you where you need to go, and I found the transmission shifts really nicely through the gears without any delays or imperfections or fussiness, which is lovely, and that's at both higher speeds and lower speeds around town. However, one of my biggest gripes is that it can feel underpowered, particularly at freeway speeds or when you're going up steeper hills. So the maximum power output is rated at only 135 kilowatts, and that can definitely start to feel mediocre when you're on freeways with huge trucks like I was on my trip to Sydney, and you're trying to overtake or merge onto freeways with speed limits of 110 kilometers per hour. It'll get you there, it's just a little bit slower and it doesn't feel like it has that extra oomph that a lot of other SUVs might possess. However, one of my favorite things about the Kia Sportage is its cruise control system, or its active cruise control system, and that's because it's just really easily managed through the steering wheel, and it works really nicely, so you can maintain your distance from your car in front and manage how far away you want to be through the steering wheel controls here, and raise or lower your speed as well. But on top of that, it has your lane keeping assist too, so it keeps you centered in your lane, makes sure you're not drifting out, and kind of does a bit of the steering work for you, but you can also intervene or override it. So just for those longer trips, particularly on my trip to Sydney, it was really handy. On top of that, the other thing I like, which you may have just heard, is that when you're indicating and there's a car kind of in your blind spot, it beeps quite loudly, which, yes, it's a little bit annoying, but it also means you're not going to be merging into anyone in your blind spot anytime soon. It makes it really clear, so that way you can merge or change lanes safely, which is really important. The Sportage also has a few drive modes accessible by a button just down near the gear stick, and those are normal, eco and sport. To be quite honest, and I mentioned before my issue with the power outputs and not feeling like there's enough oomph, I still felt that in sport mode. It does kind of give you a bit more of a dynamic steering feel, but otherwise I didn't really notice much difference. And of course you've got eco there if you're doing a longer drive and you want to make sure your fuel consumption stays low. Now obviously the Kia Sportage is all-wheel drive, which is really handy to have because its ground clearance is a little bit lower than some of its competitors like the Subaru Forester. I wouldn't say it's a full off-roader, it's more of a soft roader, which is a phrase we like to use at CarAdvice, but it does have that all-wheel drive capability for wet weather, which it feels really sort of secure and stable on the road. But on top of that, you're fine on gravel roads and probably also even in the snow if you have the right snow chains on your tires. Just maybe don't consider it if you're someone who wants to go regularly camping on weekends and tackle some really rocky terrain. It probably can get the job done if you have to, but it's not a kind of full-time off-roader. But freeway driving and country touring are really only the half of it, and most Sportage owners will be concerned with how it performs here, in the urban jungle. The Sportage is under 4.5 metres long, and while it certainly feels roomy inside, it's actually quite a compact car to manage around town. Up front in the driver's seat of the Sportage GT-Line, visibility is pretty accommodating all round, although the rear windshield could be taller and the car does feel like it sits lower to the road than other SUVs I've driven. However, that's offset by both front and rear sensors and a pretty reliable rear vision camera. On top of that, I found there were plenty of handy bits and bobs around the car for around town driving. For example, I love this little tray here for your knickknacks, the well-placed cup holders, the wireless phone charger, which is a godsend for when you need to charge while on the move, and the door bins for things like drink bottles. For purely urban driving, I initially felt the Sportage's fuel consumption was a little high at as much as 11.1 litres per 100 kilometres, but that was actually lower than Kia's quoted urban figure of 11.8 litres per 100 kilometres. However, after adding lots more freeway driving into the mix with a trip to Sydney, my fuel consumption dropped all the way down to a more respectable 6.7 litres per 100 kilometres, which is bang on Kia's quoted extra urban figure. Now, one of my favourite features on this car is the intelligent parking assist system, which you can only get on the GT-Line spec grade. I've had mixed success with the kind of self-park systems on other cars in the past, which is why I find the Sportage is particularly impressive because A, it's very easy to use, and B, it works. So first of all, what you do is hit a button down here by the gear stick, and then you just roll up alongside an available parallel park. Once the car recognizes that park, all you do is pop it into reverse and it does all the steering work for you. Super handy on busy streets. As I mentioned, I took this car to Sydney and back, and we had plenty of luggage, most of which managed to fit in the 466 litre boot, and any overflow went onto the back seat, although I'm lucky we don't have a family dog because poor old Pooch might not have squeezed in there. On top of that, we really appreciated the power tailgate, which can be operated by the key or with a hands-free function. It just made loading and unloading the car really convenient. If you do have backseat occupants, you might have to get strategic loading the boot, which is slightly smaller than some competitors. Additionally, you'll be able to fit 2 child seats with ease, and backseat occupants are well served with ventilation, ample legroom and reclining seats. Above all, the Kia Sportage GT-Line is a supremely practical car thanks to its very long equipment list. Some of my personal highlights included the seat heaters and coolers, both of which I used interchangeably on the trip between Melbourne and Sydney, the electrically adjustable leather seats which recline super far back for added comfort, the keyless entry, and of course this expansive sunroof. A few small complaints. For starters, the Sportage can actually be driven when the key is not in the car. It does make a small attempt to alert you, but I found that can be easily missed, meaning on more than one occasion, I had a passenger jump out with the key in their pocket and I kept on driving to my destination only to realise once I arrived there that I couldn't restart the car. Not ideal. Also, on a small handful of occasions, I found that the Apple CarPlay dropped out on me, which interrupted phone calls and maps directions, but that was infrequent. And finally, I do wish the sound system was a little bit better because it can get overruled by road and tyre noise, and we all know that a great soundtrack is a key part of the driving experience. In summary, I could really get used to the Kia Sportage as part of my everyday existence. It's a comfortable and convenient car, if a little bit underpowered at times. My hot tip, however, would be to spend the extra money and go to the GT-Line, as some of my favourite features were part of the top spec package. Otherwise, I think it's a great family car that doubles as a city-friendly SUV with all-wheel drive chops. A happy medium if ever there was one. Thanks for watching. If you want more new car content like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel or head to CarAdvice.com.au for the full written review.